Welcome to another discussion of Annex Cloud Market Movers, where we bring in experts, luminaries to support us during the current times. I am extremely excited today because we are speaking with Deloitte, who has amazing experience over many, many years in the topics we're discussing today around loyalty and retention. I want to welcome Oliver and Ramya to the discussion. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us today. If you might want to just start off with a quick introduction about yourselves and we kick it off, that would be wonderful.
Sure. I'll go first. So thanks, Al. Appreciate you having us on. And my name is Oliver Page. I am a principal in our digital practice within Deloitte. I focus on building and implementing solutions that are customer-facing and associate-facing. And one of those things is loyalty. Over the last few years, loyalty has actually been a very big topic for us, and it's actually a big topic for our clients because it's driving a ton of revenue, and right now, during COVID, it's driving a ton of retention. So looking forward to sharing a bit more about our lessons learned and some of the things that, that we've seen drive successful programs.
Yeah, again, thank you, Al, and really happy to be here. My name is Ramya Murali. I'm a principal in our strategy practice at Deloitte, and I've spent the bulk of my career really thinking about the intersection of growth strategy and the customer experience and how you can drive growth and business value and think about new ways that you engage with your customer. And just to build on Oliver's point, loyalty is really one of the strongest levers companies can pull to try to engage with their customers and drive that type of growth. And so I've really spent a lot of time thinking about that across a broad range of both B2B and B2C companies, and thinking about how different companies can apply loyalty and activate it in different ways.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, both of you, and really, really happy and excited to have you here. So let's kick it off. You know, the first one is more open-ended. I want to sort of talk a little bit about, in your experience of the many years that you both have spent in the space of digital transformation, what are sort of the things that you have learned that matter the most when it comes to loyalty and retention, especially around sort of the ability for customers to retain their customers and keep them loyal as it comes around for the long run?
Yeah, it's a question we spend a lot of time thinking about, Al. The truth is that the loyalty marketplace is very crowded, and it becomes really difficult for consumers to wade through the noise and understand which loyalty programs meet their needs and really help serve them the best. And so over the many, many projects that we've delivered as a firm and just understanding the loyalty landscape, we've distilled what we think of as the 5 beliefs that are critical for a loyalty program to be successful. And so just to quickly summarize them, we think that a loyalty program should drive specific customer behavior that actually corresponds to business value. We believe that it should deliver a broad portfolio of compelling beliefs and experiences and interactions, that it should engage a customer throughout their life cycle. So not just in an individual transaction, but throughout their entire experience and in multiple ways as they grow as consumers. We think that it's important that a program effectively engages the employees of the company, because they are often important ambassadors and activators of the program, and external partners, as we think about loyalty programs increasingly being ecosystems. And then finally, that loyalty programs should be delivered in a modern, dynamic way, which means that it should be thought of as another strategic product of your business and be nimble and evolving over time. And our fundamental belief is if a company and a program is able to deliver on those 5 beliefs, there are 2 really important things that it allows you to do. It creates rational and emotional resonance between the brand and the customer. So it's not just a transaction, it's actually an emotional connection that your customers have with the brand. And you've created a system where you're delivering authentic and differentiated value. In this time period where there's so much noise, we believe that if you actually think distinctly about these beliefs, you're going to connect with your guest and your customer in a way that's unique and differentiated and drive a long-term relationship.
Wonderful. And I really love all sort of these points that you mentioned. And just to give you some sort of context, there are a lot of studies from sort of how we've looked at loyalty programs ourselves. And I really like the 2 points that you mentioned that we want to sort of dive a little deeper into, which is sort of, talking about using specific customer behavior to drive business outcomes. And that's important because a lot of times we look at very generic loyalty programs that are transactional, that are focused just on driving one behavior, which is purchases, but the customer journey is very, very varied. And sort of the second point, which really parlays well into that, which is engaging people across their customer journey, not just for the point of the transaction, because a lot of times minds are made up well before the transaction. And by the way, if you want them to become an advocate and buy again, and not just buy again themselves, but make other people buy, you have to think about the post-purchase sort of journey. So it's a full experience that really matters, and you have to sort of take all the behaviors that they do, not just the transactional behaviors in mind. Oliver, I mean, what's your take on certain examples and how you've implemented some of these tactics in play, and what are sort of other pieces that you can kind of enlighten us on that topic?
Sure. Yeah. You use the word tactic, which is kind of an interesting one. These beliefs we think are encompassing. We didn't talk about things like personalization and customization. We believe those things come as tactics within those beliefs. So we can certainly dive into some of those tactics, but for us, those are, evolving trends and behaviors that we're seeing, and we do a lot of research on what those trends are. But if we bubble up a half level or a level above that at the strategic level, what's required to make these programs successful? So you asked, on the first one, just tying to a customer behavior, tying a business outcome to a customer behavior. I'll share an example of a company that I've worked with on their program, which was a regional convenience player here in the US. And they have an interesting business model across 3 different lines of business, across a fuel business, a retail business, and then a prepared food business. And as you bring those different models together, there's vastly different margin requirements across them to be successful. And driving customer behavior by moving them between different parts of that business was critically important to the success of that program. So from the onset, we knew right away what we needed to do was move people across their fuel business into the prepared food business, into their retail business, and be able to shift customers across those different lines of business. So we're very intentional in our design to think about, first taking into account all aspects of their business as part of the program, and then driving custom challenges and offers and behaviors that would shift people and extend them into other parts of the business, while taking into consideration the margin impact associated with, say, a fuel side versus a prepared food side. If I take a different example, and this will actually extend nicely into the second part of your question, which was around the customer journey. We were working with a travel center, and in their situation, what we discovered very quickly is there's all these different parts of the experience that start, like you said, pre-purchase, during purchase, post-purchase, but they had a whole set of different services actually. So at different parts of the stay for this travel center, you'd be offering coffee, snacks, maybe showers, truck washes and such. And as you wanted to extend that end-to-end loyalty experience across the journey, being able to go and cross-sell those different services across the end-to-end experience. And what we actually found was most customers wanted to purchase things digitally and enable kind of that end-to-end journey through a digital channel, but they never had a killer value proposition in that digital channel to attract them to that channel. So as soon as we started to create the impetus to say, all right, your loyalty and your rewards are all in the digital channel, it drove so much behavior into that channel, and then exposed them to other services across the life cycle of their purchase behavior, from their morning coffee to their parking stall, for example, for overnight parking.
And Al, I would love to add, just building off of Oliver's last point, if you think about a lot of the companies in the travel and hospitality space, so airlines, hotel companies, so much of their most loyal customers are driven off of high frequency business travelers. And one of the important opportunities that we see with the loyalty programs in this space is their ultimate goal, generally speaking, is to drive greater customer retention, greater share of wallet. But one of the most important pivots that they make when you connect that first belief to the third one, as you described, is how do you connect the behaviors of a business traveler with the behaviors when you travel for leisure? And the way that you might offer different loyalty program benefits, the way that you engage with a consumer when they're on a family vacation versus when they're on a business trip, those are important experience points that these companies can really deliver authentic, unique, personalized experiences and differentiate, because we look for different things when we travel. And one of the great attributes of these loyalty programs is when you're able to make those connections and say, how do I engage with a traveler differently when their purpose is different? And to Oliver's point, really make it so that you know more about how that customer is behaving and can find ways to delight them and offer them different interactions and benefits at different points in their customer journey.
Absolutely. And since you mentioned travel and hospitality, right, one of the things in case studies, especially when we talk about airlines, you ask anyone about a loyalty program and ask them about which loyalty programs they're a part of, the first few things they'll say is some airline, right? Yeah. And American Airlines and United Airlines, we just saw the news less than a month ago that they were able to raise $5 billion against a value of close to $20 to $30 billion of their loyalty program, which values their loyalty program at 2x the size of everything else they own, the planes and everything else put together. So just shows that they've spent 40 years building this, right? So it takes time, obviously, but it's the right time and invested. And in times of a pandemic when no one's flying, it's more valuable than their entire company. And so they've built that sort of mental capacity in all of us over time, and brands and companies should use that towards that. And that takes me sort of to my next question is, we're in a very different time right now. We're in the COVID post-pandemic era. We're trying to come out of it. And one of the other studies that, in addition to the American Airlines examples I want to bring up, is back from the last recession in 2008. There was a study done by Catalina Marketing and CMO Council, which was for 32 million people that bought from 685 top brands. This includes Coke, Pepsi, Samsung, Apple, everyone else back in 2008. And the study said across all the brands, 52% of their customers defected between 2008 and 2009, which is significantly higher than sort of what anyone's seen ever in the past, essentially, right? So a big sort of portion of their customers defected, and 19% of those defections actually went to a competitor, right? Because they had a different service or it was less expensive or what have you. So right now, it's even more important to keep your customers sticky. Right now, it's even more important to keep your customers loyal, and investing in that is important. Sort of that's what I learned from the 2008 sort of piece. What are your considerations around sort of what's happening right now with COVID, and what should brands and companies and businesses think about retention and loyalty as it pertains to now?
Yeah, this is a good question, right? I mean, what's happening right now is pushing companies to the brink and forcing radically different interactions, a ton of innovation, and rapid switching of, what was the normal way of doing business just, 6 months ago is now been turned on its head. We think without a doubt that this is a golden window of opportunity to think about your customers and retain those customers more aggressively than ever before, partially because, there's not a ton of net new business in the marketplace, and the competition for existing business has doubled up, right? The competition for each dollar in the business, in the marketplace has increased, whether that's B2C or B2B, and creating retention focused models around your business model, whether it's, a traditional B2C model or a B2B model, is critically important. And we're actually seeing that in just the requests that we're getting from companies. The RFPs that are coming our way are actively around, how do we retain customers? They may not explicitly say loyalty, but they're explicitly saying, we're doubling down on retaining our customers in unique and creative ways, and making sure that, in essence, what you just said, they don't defect. So that all just sets up this case for the next 12, 24 months are going to be critical to retention, and moving quickly to how you retain your customers is going to be very important. And then the second piece that we're seeing around this is the creativity and sort of the expansion. So there's a ton of net new programs or thought process around retention. And then we're also seeing a resurgence on existing programs. And I mean, if you just look across the marketplace, people have extended the length of status. People have gone and extended, your tiers and created very compelling offers that shift from one category to another, say on your credit card. All of those models have extended, but then, if you're thinking about net new, we're seeing equally, aggressive innovation in markets I've never seen loyalty programs, especially, most recently I'm seeing, a shift in the B2B space much more aggressively. So I'm excited for what the next, 24 months brings around this topic.
So on the impact of COVID, Ramya, do you have anything to add to what Oliver just said?
Yeah, I think that one of the things you're seeing is consumer apprehension is incredibly high right now. And so one of the ways that loyalty programs are able to help their companies differentiate themselves in this very turbulent time is really emphasizing with a ton of transparency the actions and protocols that they're putting in place around health, safety, and cleanliness. And you're really seeing this across the full spectrum of retail and travel companies. And I think it's incredibly important because I think this is going to be a trend that is pervasive for a little while, even as the pandemic evolves, where consumers are really expecting a heightened sense of transparency and communication, especially from the brands that they are the most loyal to. And I think it is, to build on Oliver's point, an important way that companies can use their loyalty programs to stand out in this complicated time.
Yeah, and I think, I'm really glad you mentioned B2B a few times because we're seeing exactly the same thing, right? And traditionally, you think about B2C and consumer-oriented markets that have always adopted loyalty as a mechanism, and they're doubling down. And if they had it, they're changing it and improving it. If they didn't have it, they're always doing it. But B2B, that's a massive shift of mindset. So I completely agree. And they're doing that very, very actively now as you speak. So thanks for bringing that up. I think the sort of other parts are, as a company that has never done that before, if they come to Deloitte and say, what are the top considerations from an executional perspective if I'm embarking on this journey to improve retention for my customers? And I agree with you, loyalty programs are a tactic. It's a means to an end. The end is really improving retention. And there are a few other ways to do that. But if they're thinking of doing loyalty programs to get there, what are the sort of top considerations from a business process, executional, other things that you would advise people to start thinking about in this perspective, in this journey?
Yeah, Al, and it's an important place to start. And I think, where we always come back to, there was a long period of time where a lot of loyalty programs were basically emerging because it was the flavor of choice for marketing, right? It was a way, it felt like a thing that you had to have. And I think we're at an important inflection point, as Oliver said, where there's an opportunity for companies to recalibrate and say, is my program doing the thing that I want it to do? Is it serving the outcome? Use retention as an example. And retention is one business objective, right? And there are many others. And I think first and foremost, when we enter into these exercises, whether you're trying to develop a program from scratch or refreshing a program, is to say, what are you trying to accomplish? And because ultimately answering some of those upfront strategic questions of what business value you're trying to drive and how do you want to engage with your customers to do that, it really does then make the handoff to some of the operational and execution choices so much clearer. It also makes the metrics by which you measure your effectiveness that much more apparent, right? So I think first and foremost, you always want to start with that strategy question of why are you doing this? What is the thing you're trying to achieve?
Yeah, wonderful. So Oliver, sort of carrying on from Ramya's sort of top considerations, are there any other top considerations from your perspective as businesses think about embarking on this journey?
Yeah, especially if you're starting out for the first time in the loyalty space, one of the big gotchas, if you haven't been down this journey, is that the first year is very exciting, right? The program's doing exceptionally well, and you're seeing all these, great results and frequency and basket size or whatever the metrics are that you measure. But often, what ends up happening is you're really measuring results of behavior that has already existed. And granted, there's going to be net new behavior, but say 75% of that is existing behavior. And then carrying that into year 2 is absolutely critical. So what we find in kind of that first year that you have to double down on is the data. You have to double down on all the loyalty data, the customer data that you've already captured as a result of the program, because it's a gold mine of information. But those are going to be your drivers for how you continue to drive frequency, how you continue to drive growth of the program in year 2. And that's your way of trying to avoid that dip in the year 2 mark. So, as you're embarking on this journey, there's kind of all the things you have to do to get out the door and get your program live. As soon as you get live, measuring, using, and monetizing that data in a way that helps you drive frequency, helps you drive basket size in year 2 as well, will be absolutely critical to your program success.
Wonderful. And I actually really like it because it ties really well to the part that you guys mentioned about the entire customer journey, because the customer data will have sort of the traditional loyalty metrics data, which is repeat rate and basket size, as you mentioned, but it also has a lot of customer behavioral data across the entire customer journey that can then be mined and used sort of in year 2, as you mentioned. So really ties into sort of your beliefs really well as well. So thank you for sort of mentioning that. That's perfect. This was great. Thank you again, both of you, for joining me today. I think we sort of have a wealth of knowledge and information that we collected. If people want to reach Oliver or Ramya at Deloitte or get their help in strategizing their loyalty programs, you can find them on LinkedIn or you can find them on Deloitte. And I highly recommend, because they've got a wealth of experience scaling large-scale loyalty programs, both in the B2C and, as you heard, in the B2B space. So thank you both, Oliver and Ramya, for joining us today. We really appreciate it. And for everyone else, if you want to hear amazing such videos, please go to annexcloud.com/marketmovers. Thank you again. Bye for now.
Thank you, Al.
Thank
Take
you.
care.